Welcome to this edition of Board Report for the month of March. This month, board members honored some members of the wrestling team, boys and girls. They also took action on an item dealing with the child nutrition program audit, and we also heard construction reports. And Mr. Limon, our superintendent of schools, is here to talk to us about it and tell us all about what happened at this March board meeting.
Thank you, Celia. Thank you very much. Always a pleasure to be here.
Yes, Mr. Limon, we start off with the boys varsity wrestling team. That was a team that went before the board. They're under Coach Rudy Quilantan and assistant coach John Silva. They had a real good year this year, so they were the ones that were honored by our board members.
That's right. Not only did they have a good year this year, but Coach Quilantan pointed out that he only has one senior on the team. That means that they'll be back. They did very well, very proud of our boys wrestling team, and have experienced quite a bit of success in that area the last few years.
Mm-hmm. And there were 11 team members that did qualify to go to regionals in San Antonio, and one team member, being a sophomore, Greg Hernandez, he was honored for placing 6th at regionals.
Congratulations.
Mm-hmm. And we also had members of the girls' varsity wrestling team. The head coach is Crispin Lopez, and he is assisted by Leticia Pope.
And they also did very well. They went also and had several qualifiers and did well. We have now, we talk about the total package. We talk about not only academics, but we talk about athletics. But sometimes when you talk about the total package, athletics is limited. But it doesn't seem to be limited, and we try not to limit it. We try to offer as many sports to our students as possible, and students are taking advantage of it. Girls wrestling was something probably that, a few years ago, girls didn't participate in, but now it's become a very competitive sport and more interest.
Mm-hmm. And they were, this year, the 32-5A dual district champions. The District 32-5A district champions, they had an undefeated season of 17-0, an undefeated tournament of 4-0, and they placed 4th at the Region 4 tournament. So those are some very big honors.
Well. Very congratulations to all the students, their parents, their coaches for a job well done. And
in addition to all that, Mr. Limon, they did have 10 female athletes that were honored for placing at regionals. I do want to point out that at state, the team finished 27th, and they had 3 females placing in the top 10, with 1 female finishing 5th place and 2 finishing in 9th place.
Fantastic.
And this particular team also has 1 senior this year, so it'll be a lot of girls returning next year, so that's also exciting news.
So the future looks good.
Yes, sir. We move on now to superintendent's report. We had an item on the agenda, child nutrition program. They recently had an audit, and they came out with favorable results. You want to talk to us about that?
Right. We've had, just recently we had the audit, but before that, in January, we had another audit. These audits usually happen about every 5 years or so. It happened that both of those major audits fell within a few months of each other. As we had mentioned earlier, our first audit came out, excellent. We lost no funding whatsoever. Everything was in compliance. Everything was great. This audit followed the same pattern. Everything was fine. There was no findings of any errors. All the nutrition that we're supposed to offer is being offered. Everything is being run the way it's supposed to be run. Congratulations to Jana Landrum and her department, all her staff, for a job well done. These audits, if you were to get a report card, you're looking at an A+. You're looking at an A+ on both audits, extremely rare, and just a very well-run department, which is our child nutrition program.
Mm-hmm. And I do want to point out that while we're on the topic of child nutrition program, I know recently we've heard the headlines about the finely lean textured beef. I do want to point out that the company that provides our district with the beef products, they do not use this lean, finely textured beef, so there's no need to worry if parents might have a question in mind about that.
Some concern over that, and no, we do not use that. So that's also another example of the quality that we have in our district.
Mm-hmm. Also, another item mentioned in your report, the district energy savings. I know that you presented a report. The district has taken several measures to help with the energy savings, and the district has realized a savings of $600,000. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yes. The main cost of a district, of course, is the utilities, the electrical, the HVAC, which is referred to as the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. You have to have that particular department under control. If not, it will eat you alive. It's typical that if we don't control our air conditioning, the room could be cool, it could be running uncontrolled, the bill would be, tremendous. What we did was we conducted a study. We had a consultant conduct a study from 2005 onward and took the comparison of what we were spending in energy in 2005 under the old system. The old system was a DX unit. The new systems are chilled water units. All remember a couple of years ago, we went to the board and got permission to redo the high school from the old system into a chilled water system. We were able to use IFA funds, which are the instructional facilities allotment. We were allowed to do that. In other words, that's bond money. That's not money that came out of the local treasury or the local fund balance. It's money that our taxpayers approved that we have a bond. We sold the bonds, and for those of you not familiar with that, when you sell bonds, the state picks up, in our case, about 84% of the cost of paying it back. The local taxpayers pick up about 16%. And that's why the local taxpayers give us the opportunity, or they vote for us to increase their taxes by 6 or 7 cents. Well, that's what happened in 2008, I believe, when we passed the last bond. But we were able to replace all that equipment, okay? The new law, when we had the old equipment, the law said that you had to have 10% of fresh air coming in from the outside into a building. When we changed the equipment, the law also changed and said that now you have to have 35% of fresh air coming into a building from the outside, mixing in with the conditioned air that you have inside the building. That created some problems for us originally because instead of our bill going up, our bill went higher because we now had all this outside air that was coming in that we had to recondition. And it was coming in because the law requires that you have 35% of outside air coming in. That gets rid of the carbon dioxide that our body produces, I believe. Mm-hmm. So therefore, there's an exchange there. It's a lot of technical stuff that the air conditioning people worry about. I just worry about the bill. Mm-hmm. But when it all was said and done, now that we have the system under control, now that we have setback points where we can at night go back and set the temperature up to 80, and the day we try and keep the temperature between 74 and 76. At night we set it back up to 80 or a little bit higher than 80. It's brought us a savings in kilowatt hours, which is the equivalent of about $600,000 a year district-wide, because we have other buildings as well that are on chilled water. In fact, most of our buildings are on chilled water. So when we look at the high school by itself, the high school is now saving about $100,000 a year in energy cost with the improvements that we've made at the high school. So if you take that, or the overall improvements at the high school were right at about $5 million. So the life of a system is expected to be about 30 years. So we're doing some other things with what we call the price blending, that we're projecting about a $1.1 million savings a year. So if you look at that, within 5 years, we should be able to pay for the system that we installed, and the other 25 years would be just money that the district is saving overall. So it was a good report, and we feel for the first time since I've been here superintendent for 8 years, for the first time I feel comfortable that we finally have the air conditioning department. We finally have the right staff there. We finally have the air conditioning department under control where we can have significant energy savings, and it's not a runaway system. Sometimes we don't realize, with 18 campuses, the tremendous amount of air conditioning equipment that we have in this district. But Mr. Montes is doing a great job of his department, and we're saving some money finally.
Mm-hmm. And that's important because I know the districts all around the state, they're doing everything that they can to save money, and if it means just implementing certain measures like temperature controls and turning them off at a certain time of night, then it's to be commended by the staff members there at the air conditioning department. We move on to school construction report. We had two proposals dealing with HVAC systems. We were just speaking about that. Miller Jordan Middle School and Riverside Middle School. Those two items were approved by the board.
Right. Mr. Ramon, our construction manager, works very closely, hand in hand, with our air conditioning department, with Mr. Montes. There was two areas that we still needed to correct. One of them is a field house at Miller Jordan. That is not a chilled water unit. It is a DX unit. And therefore, we're now going to convert that to a chilled water unit to have additional savings at Miller Jordan. The other one was a defective unit at Riverside that needed to be replaced, and both of those were approved by the board. And again, we were able to use bond money, to take care of this and to fix that problem.
We also have two pending projects with Frank Roberts Elementary and Landrum Elementary. Those projects are also currently in progress. You want to give us a little update on those two?
They're running quite a bit behind schedule, but Mr. Ramon told the board that night that hopefully by the middle of May, the Frank Roberts project and the Landrum project should be finished. They should have been finished in January, or actually in December. But problems, the contractor ran into problems. They had never built schools before. This was the first time they were building a school. So they're, I guess, learning as they go. So it's taken them some time to finish, but hopefully they'll finish and we'll have a good product sometime around mid-May.
Okay. We also move on to another area. Our board members approved an item on the agenda pertaining to the district's health clinic, which was approved. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about what that means?
Okay, as some of you are aware, if you're a district employee, if you're not, that we provide a medical clinic to our employees that is not owned by the district. The district holds no liability. It is leased from a company that comes in and provides medical services to our employees. You may say, why? Well, if you just run, we're a self-insured district. All of the insurance that we have as a district, we set aside close to $9 million a year and say all our medical costs are going to be covered by these $9 million. Now, if it goes over that $9 million, we're in trouble. If it's under the $9 million, then we're in good shape. What happens is that the district bids out and hires what is called a third-party administrator that handles those $9 million and pays insurance claims, okay? Our third-party administrators, Blue Cross Blue Shield. But yet, the money that Blue Cross Blue Shield uses to pay all those claims comes from this pot of $9 million. Now, what happens when you and I go to a regular doctor, there are all sorts of fees and things that are paid out by the third-party administrator to cover that claim. So if we cut that third-party administrator out and have a clinic for our employees, that eliminates all that. So it is a savings in insurance. If you go to the clinic, our $9 million pot over here gets less taken out than if you were to go see a doctor that is not in the clinic. Now, what advantages do you have by going to the clinic? Well, if you go to a doctor on the outside, there's usually a copay, $30 or so. If you go to a clinic doctor here, there's no copay. If you go to the doctor on the outside, there's medicine that you have to pay for out of your insurance, and there's a deductible that you have to pay. If you go to the clinic and the medicine happens to be a generic type of medicine they can use, there's no cost for you there either. So again, there's a savings to the employee. Now, I was talking to an employee the other day that had 2 children that were ill, and they sent an email and they said that they were thankful that the district offered this, because if not, who knows what they would have spent by going to a doctor that wasn't at the clinic. Now, I've said all this to give you an understanding of what we're doing at the clinic, but our clinic, the contract was up for renewal. our current provider was only seeing between 25 and 28 at the most patients a day. We put out specifications on our bid, and we said that we wanted our clinic to see 45 people a day, because we had people that were walking in and they were turned away because, we can't see any more than 25 or 28 a day. So what this new company that's coming in, that was approved by the board, which is called Rural Clinics of South Texas, what they have committed to is to have a doctor and a PA both on staff, and they have committed to seeing a minimum of 45 patients a day. We are in the process of remodeling some at the clinic. We're going to have, right now there's currently 3 medical examining rooms. I think we have plans to have either 5 or 6 medical examining rooms when you come to the clinic. We're excited. This should happen sometime after April the 18th, because our current contract runs out on April the 18th. The new company will take in afterwards. And we're providing, quality medical care, where now we hope that more of our employees take advantage of the clinic, that more of our employees, now that they know that the clinic will see up to 45 patients a day, now that they know that if you show up even at 6 o'clock and the clinic closes at 7, they're not going to turn you away, that now this $9 million pot that's sitting over here, the more they use the clinic, the healthier this $9 million pot gets, because we're taking less money from here to cover it over there. So I've been rather long-winded, but that's the explanation for a short question.
But that's good to know, though, because I know we have probably 1,800 employees in our district.
And their dependents.
Yes, exactly. And so I know it's going to be good news for them, because I know in the past, that there's been some concerns, and hopefully now with the changes, everybody will get to be seen, and we'll get to meet the new doctors pretty soon.
Correct.
So that'll be exciting. Also, the board members approved 3 resolutions that were on the agenda. One of the particular resolutions that they approved has to do with high stakes and standardized testing. It pretty much calls on the legislature to re-examine the public school accountability in Texas.
That is correct. We, not only we locally, but even the commissioner feels that this testing has, I guess he used the words, Commissioner Scott used the words, has become a perversion of what it was intended to be. And he said that he was looking forward to reeling it back in. So something needs to be done, because the testing thing is now going out of control, and it's, in my opinion, it's become the tail wagging the dog instead of the dog wagging the tail. And it needs to be brought under control. So I'm glad to see that more and more people are getting on board with that resolution's going through. I think most of the districts in Texas are backing that up, that the legislature really needs to take a better look as to what they're doing.
Mm-hmm. Now, there was also another resolution that our board members approved dealing with suspending portions of the EIA local policy for the 2011-2012 school year only.
That is the part of the policy that talks about the end of course test, that 15% of the end of course test has to count as part of the final grade. There was so much confusion on that Commissioner Scott also said that he didn't have the authority, or if he did, he would suspend that. And then that word got to the different legislators, and they wrote to him and said, that was never our intent to do this. So if you want to go ahead and suspend that for a year until we can look at it closer. So that's what they did. Since we had already passed a policy, which was the correct thing to do when the 15% became effective, since we had already passed the policy, we asked our board to suspend that 15% for a year, so that for this year, the ninth graders do not have to, the ninth graders now are the only ones taking end of course, do not have to have that 15% count as a final in their grade.
Mm-hmm. And I know they'll be relieved, and the parents will be relieved as well to learn that. There's also another resolution that was approved on the agenda to stop the cuts in public education funding. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
If you remember last year at about this time, we were talking about the uncertainty that we did not know how much we were going to be cut. That it was ranging anywhere from being cut about $1 million to being cut about $8 million. And then finally, during the summer, it all got resolved, and we wound up losing $4.5 million this school year. And we will lose about $1.5 million for next school year. We were still able, thank God, to retain all our staff, retain our programs, and do some belt tightening here and there, and we're doing okay. But if this doesn't get corrected, and if they keep cutting and cutting and cutting, then it's going to become a time when not only us, but every single district in the state of Texas is going to be in very serious trouble. So this resolution is basically telling or asking Governor Perry, we've got all these billions of dollars in the rainy day fund, use it. Use it and stop cutting the funding that we're getting, because it's not fair that students in San Benito, CISD, are being educated at an average of $4,800, while students down the street are being educated at an average of $7,000 to $8,000 that they're getting from the state of Texas. It is not a fair, it is not an equitable system. It needs to be fixed.
And there is $2.5 billion in funds in the rainy day fund, is what I read.
Okay.
So that's a lot of money.
Right.
Well, I believe we've covered all of the topics, Mr. Limon.
And then some.
And then some. That's it for this edition of Board Report. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.